Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 25 of season 5. I'm Joshua Buckley. Paul LePage is out sick tonight. It seems to be something going around in whole Houston, Texas. But back again is our producer, Alex Patakis.
Hello.
We got Danny on the socials.
Good evening.
And our guest tonight, who has quickly become a fan favorite from Michigan Wolves, it's Joe Dylewski. How's it going, Joe?
Good. Hello, all.
And I know we have a lot to talk to you about the USA Day over in Molyneux. We are going to hit on that in a little bit. But first, guys, we have to talk about the crazy day that was Saturday. 2-0 win over Villa. Joe, it was a little concerning because we knew Strand Larson was going to be out. We knew Jao Gomez was going to be out. And then you see the lineup and you're like, okay, Sarabia, Bellegarde, Geddes. What were your thoughts when you saw that lineup?
I saw Vitor tinkering with the lineup, right? And it's I think he's trying to identify and find the chemistry and of course when you have Strand Larson out, it creates a hole that you have to fill. But overall, I looked at it and I saw Sarabia, who I'm a fan of, and the lineup that he had. You know, again, I've watched the club all year, and they have the talent there, but just waiting for them to put it together. And maybe he's found a formula, or by moving people around and putting them in different positions, he's putting them at where they'll excel.
You know, Danny, I've never said a bad thing about Pablo Sarabia starting on this podcast.
No, never. Not once.
Never. And he had a great pass on the assist to the Bellegardian of the Galaxy, who was starting at center mid. And I know it's been brought up on this show that, hey, maybe that's his best position. And it kind of seemed like it because not only did he have the goal, you could probably argue man of the match, right?
I'd very easily argue man of the match. I think a lot of players had good games, but I mean, it was a total transformation for him. And obviously the big challenge for him going forward is consistency. And I think it's an interesting question that Pereira is going to have to deal with is, how do you get him into the midfield? Does he become a regular fixture of the midfield, whether he starts there or not? And then if that is the choice, then can he continue that kind of form? I think history has shown that he's probably not that consistent, but it is exciting to see him play in his more natural place. And I think, it's sort of gotten forgotten because he's like number 100 on our list of like problems this season. But, we've played him in so many different positions, most of which aren't his natural position. So probably a big relief to him also.
Yeah, and Geddes, Alex, was also making an impact in the first half. Not really sure if it was a positive or a negative impact. Could have had a hat trick. Instead, he had no goals. And I don't know about you, but I was sitting around saying, yeah, those are going to haunt us 100%.
Yeah, too. It feels like the rule of sports is that if you miss that many chances, like there's no way it doesn't come back and bite you. But thankfully, we kind of got away with one there. I thought Geddes. I mean, look, his finishing was not great over the weekend. That is very, very obvious. Vitor Pereira was visibly upset with him, and then had a moment where he was talking to him. I'm sure, hopefully, just trying to boost his confidence and not berate him. But we don't know what they were saying in Portuguese on the during that moment. Yeah, you don't. He's a fiery guy. But to Geddes' credit, I thought he ran his ass off. I thought he looked like a player who, whether he wants to or not, wants to be here. And we spent most of last week talking about the team not looking like they care. He looks like he cares, and he is adept at getting.
Which I would have never had cares and Geddes in the same sentence.
Yeah,
since
so
he's come over here.
If it's a rejuvenation with the new hire at manager, whatever it is, if it's reality setting in of like the type of battle we're going to be in for the rest of the season, whatever it is, I'm happy about it. And he does get in good positions. Like that's the thing is like we can knock Sarabia and Geddes all we want. We can debate whether or not they're like cut out for the Premier League. I do think they're both very intelligent players, which, Danny mentioned there's like a laundry list of problems on Wolves. You can't say that about a lot of attacking players that we've had over the years that have been disappointments for Wolves. I think they're very skilled at that. It's the physicality that I think is often the question, and Geddes, his finishing over the weekend. But I'm not convinced that we don't see him continue to have goal involvements as he gets more playing time on this team. And certainly if he plays in the Cup, because that's where he shines. He was Mr. Carabao, and now hopefully he could be Mr. FA Cup as well.
Joe, with Strand Larson, kind of heard like maybe 2 to 3 months out, which is. Do you think Geddes and Sarabia are going to be permanent places in this lineup now?
It's possible, Josh, but again, you may see some more tweaking of that. But again, though, is the question is that the formula that was done, is that successful? And and with regards to Geddes, I mean, I like to see these players first create the opportunities and then the finishing I hope will come. But yeah, I do. I see that. Again, there may be some minor tweaking, but I definitely see that as a formula that appears to work. And the one thing I noticed is, and maybe it was just me, but I noticed that the Wolves were definitely playing a more defensive posture, and the chances that they were creating were on the counterattack. And maybe that's yet another ingredient to this as well.
Well, and part of that defense was the return of Toti Gomez. Danny, he looked good. And, I still question Doc on the right side, at right center back. But Toti and Agbadou really steadied things back there.
Yeah, just to touch on Doc for a second, I was kind of surprised that when, Toti came back in, that it wasn't, your three natural center backs, with Santi keeping his place. But then you remember that Vitor Pereira really prefers, the quote unquote defenders as opposed to center backs. And I think that might be a hint going forward as to the setup, even as we get, the new players in that we're going to talk about. And so I think Doc keeping his place maybe is more of a Vitor Pereira thing, but you have to look at Toti, and I mean, it's a small sample size, but Toti has started 3 games under Vitor Pereira, and we have won all of them and kept clean sheets in all of them. So right now it's hard to think that he could be dropped for any reason. We all know that he's not the most technically gifted sometimes. I mean, he somehow skates around just fine, but man, sometimes he doesn't look all that graceful, but you can't argue with the results, and especially in this game. I mean, I was immediately thinking about dreaming of next year with Toti, Agba, and Yersin in a back three, and what that looks like.
They'll dominate the championship, Danny.
Yeah, what's the record for least number of goals conceded in a championship campaign?
Yeah, right.
The only way Toti could have looked better is if he was wearing the shirt that you're wearing, Danny, and modeling it.
That's right.
With blonde hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he went away with the blonde hair, but instead went with the full beard, which I have not seen on him yet. So maybe the beard. And I think someone was talking to me about a facial hair spreadsheet. I don't think our squad has quite. It was when João Gomez went with just the mustache instead of the mustache and goatee. Oh man, there's too many permutations though. It was easy when it was just blonde or not blonde.
Yeah, that's a lot of tape you have to review. Alex, it really seems like Agbadou has been exactly what Wolves needed, and he's added that toughness back there that was really desperately needed.
Yeah, I mean, we all know what he, who he is physically. It's overwhelmingly obvious when you watch him play. He's very, very
big
gifted.
motherfucker. Yep.
He is. Yeah, there's no other way to put that. But he's very skilled. I thought he looked like a very instinctual player at the middle of that defense. When you look at that position, I guess in the modern Wolves era. Historically, like, Connor Cody obviously did it very, very well. He had a particular niche, and that was his role. Craig Dawson then came in and kind of steadied the waters a little bit at that position. If that is where Agbadou is going to end up playing now that the transfer deadline is closed and Totti is healthy and would play on the left, I'm pretty into it. And he is, there's a big difference physically between him, Dawson, and Cody, right? So if he could play with like half the instincts that those guys played with over the time in the back three for Wolves when they weren't leaking goals when Mr. Gary O'Neill came in, then I'm very, very heartened. And I think he seems like the kind of player who really looks forward to the challenge of facing a really impactful number 9. And on Saturday, Ollie Watkins, maybe guys were leggy, whatever. I guess you could always throw that caveat in. Villa played midweek. They've been bad after their Champions League matches. But he looked physically dominant. And Villa never really, other than the offsides goal on a set piece, never really looked like scoring. And I thought Agbadou was a huge part of that. He covers so much ground. He's good in the air. He's good on the ball, kind of, actually. He seems like he could do it all.
Danny, I got a great Lord of the Rings comparison here for you.
Okay.
I can see Agbadou and João Gomez being like Gimli and Legolas when they're counting how many orcs they're taking out. I really feel like I could see the two of them do it as far as tackles and physical play. What do you think? Is that a good comparison?
Yeah, I'm willing to accept that. I don't know that there's like enough of a size disparity or whatever, but I think that I think I can get on board.
Yeah, I could see João Gomez getting tossed right at a ball. Maybe it would be if Podence was
right.
If he was Podence's size.
I mean, we can all agree getting Podence back would be the best for at least the content and the banter.
It'd be something. I forgot all about him this transfer window. I don't even know. Yeah. Well, Joe, it was almost 1-1, which probably would have led to a completely different result in the end. It was on a set piece again, but VAR ruled that it was offside. I liked the way the rule was put in place, but were you surprised that the goal was ruled off?
Heck no. No, law of averages says we're going to have to get one of these at some point. Right? No, I mean, when I first saw it and they showed the initial replay, I thought it was offside, but no, I mean, that's the way it works. And hey, and if the law of averages does work here, right, that's not the first one of many, hopefully, that go our way.
Yeah, it felt like a very kind of American call, in a way, it reminds me of more American sports in the way that it's officiated. For what it's worth, obviously there are lots of Villa fans crying about it, and I understand. If it was our goal, I'd be salty too. But to me, that's kind of I don't really want VAR to be looking at minuscule differences, but at the same time, the types of things that I would like VAR to actually care about are cynical breaking of the rules. And for me, even though the argument against it being ruled out was just that he barely touches Semedo. How much does he really impede him? But you can't tell me that his sole objective when he did that, his sole focus when he did the little run that he did, was to impede Semedo in some way. He's not doing that.
I think that was 100%.
Yeah, he's not doing it for any other reason. And so for me, it's almost like the way that we judge a penalty, where it's if there's any contact while you're doing that in an offside position, then I'm sorry, you're offside. If you want to run around and just distract and be offside, then fine. But as soon as you make contact with the player at all, then he has a claim to say, I was worried about this offside player and I needed to go track this runner. I don't think he was getting there anyway, which is also what Villa fans would say, but then just don't do it.
Yeah. And this is where I think, we could maybe stand to say that, VAR could work in a world where it's implemented correctly, because it's funny, Danny called it very American, but this is very true. There are some times that calls are made in the NFL or in any sport, and by the letter of the law, you have to make that call, right? Even though, like, I think about the red card last week, right? Like, most people would say that Miles Lewis Skelly should not have been given a straight red. But by the letter of the law, if your stud's up above the, basically like where the contact was made and you freeze that frame, you just have to make the call. It's the same way where if a player's in an offside position and beating a defender, whether or not he makes enough contact, that, like, no, it's not subjective. It has to, like, it has to be objective, and then it can work. And I think that sometimes you have to make calls that are harsh, and sometimes you have to make calls that a lot of people, maybe even some Wolves fans, would say are kind of stupid calls. But until you continually make those and make it a habit to follow the fucking rules that are laid out, right, so that people don't do it anymore, you know, then we wouldn't be able to argue like that. It's as simple as that. You know, it's like, is it a dumb rule? Maybe. But what you don't want to do is have, you know, something where you could freeze a frame. You could say that guy's breaking a rule, but he's not breaking it enough, because that opens the door for people like us to be like, there's a conspiracy against Wolves.
Right.
You know, like we're hard done by. There's subconscious bias with the big six, like Gary O'Neill said, and that's the kind of stuff that makes us think that. So just call the game as it's written in the rule book. And yeah, maybe it's a little stupid, but at the end of the year, I don't think Villa is going to be like sitting there, you know, writing letters to PGMOL about that one play, right? Like, it's like, just move on.
They're not going to be.
Go ahead, Joe.
They're not going to be voting to get rid of VAR, right?
We know that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I agree, Alex. I mean, to me, it's figuring out how to add the objectivity, right? And figure out how to add that objectivity and be able to use VAR to make those objective calls.
Yeah, I felt like if you were going to rule off our goal against West Ham last year on the offside when Kilman scored on the set piece, you had to take this one off the score sheet. Like, I agree with the rule there. He very clearly, it was set up for him to block Semedo. So I was glad that the rules actually came through for once for us. Yay. And then, guys, as much as the result in the 3 points were awesome, I really feel like the last 5 minutes of that match is what's going to define the rest of this season more than 3 points is. And that was Matheus Cunha busting through, showing a ton of skill and heart to get that goal. And then his celebration afterwards, which Danny was, that was, I wish he just would have had Fabrizio's Twitter handle and give a big FU to it, because he left no doubt, and he ended up signing his contract like an hour later. He left no doubt that I'm staying here at Wolves. I'm ready for the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I told you guys in the group chat that I was too busy celebrating to even say. I had to ask you guys what he had done before I saw the replay that included the celebration. So I almost missed it. But yeah, on your other point, I noticed that one of the people in the media who is known to be a Wolves fan, Susie Perry, who does a lot of presenting for motorsports and whatever. She had a good tweet, when Fabrizio finally decided to tweet about Matheus Cunha doing the celebration. So tweet that one, Fabrizio. It's just that guy is such a leech. Oh my God. This could really turn into a Danny is a complete hater podcast, because you bring up Fabrizio Romano, especially his selective choice to tweet about the stars of players on teams that are in the bottom half. Oh my God. Just don't even get me started.
He's a mouthpiece is what he's become. I do think Fabrizio for a while was a really good reporter, and that's how he got, but now he's at the point where he just is fed stuff by agents, and he's just a mouthpiece, which
he's just collecting Venmo payments from agents is what he's doing. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, because I felt like he was very reliable a few years ago, and now it's just no, not at all. And I feel like it was so important, Alex, because it's very clear this team feeds off of Cunha's energy. I mean, he's had stuff going on the last few weeks, and they've looked like shit, right?
Mhm.
He had a lot more fight, and then just the celebration and seeing the way the guys were and everything. That's as important as just getting 3 points.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, it's the want to, right? That we said it was there with Geddes. It was definitely there with Cunha. And for Cunha, it's a player where it's always been there, except the past couple of weeks when he had his head turned and he missed some time because of suspension. And all of a sudden, it looks like maybe the best days of Cunha at Wolves were behind him. But that's not the case. And you have to respect it. I mean, when you look at the other direction that this could have gone, I don't want to bash the guy on his way out, but like Mario Lemina, like the end of his tenure at Wolves was him essentially not being up for the fight. And
I'll get into Lemina too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like with Matheus Cunha, it would be easy, I guess, to kind of like half-heartedly go through the rest of this season, not really care about what the end result is. Like we were talking about last week, there's not a lot of consequences for a guy like him, right? Because even if Wolves get relegated, worst case scenario, he ends up, on a massive club's bench next year, possibly even starting for a massive club. It really only hurts the club, not him, right? It's not a reflection on him. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him now because even if he's like faking it, like his love for this club that he's displaying is a rallying cry for all of us. Like you said, Josh, I think it inspires the rest of the team. We brought in what feels like Brazilians specifically to kind of create this core around him and João Gomes. And those are the guys that are going to carry us to safety. And signing the contract is just a way to pay back, what he's gotten from this club and from these fans over a very brief period of time. He didn't owe us that, right? So I'm very thankful. And it's amazing that he could go into being kind of like this villain almost, and then right back into our good graces, and now like one of our favorite players who, even if he leaves in the summer, I think we could look back with nothing but fond memories of it.
I still couldn't believe that he was becoming a villain in Wolves fans. I was just beyond furious about that, Joe, because I mean, really, a lot of other players, because it was very clear he was checking Twitter for the fact that he saw Liam Keene's tweet and commented on it. It would have been very easy for a player to be like, man, the fans are turning on me. Fuck those guys, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say that for me, honestly, there's still some work to be done. Like he was still not at his best in that Villa game, I will say, especially in the first half when Wolves were actually doing quite well. He played his part, but it wasn't what we'd come to expect. And if it is really the case that he's eyeing up a move in the summer, one, that may not materialize. We all know that. Mm-hmm. I mean, that happened over and over again with Ruben Neves. It happened a couple windows for Pedro Neto. The move isn't always there when exactly you want it to be. And I just hope that this was like, it was easy to read too much into what was going on and the noise in the media, and to ascribe, intentions to him that he may or may not have. So now it's up to him to sort of prove it through at least this end of this season, and then whatever comes next, that he's still on board with the fans. And all that means is just, giving his best while he's here and leaving, on good terms, which really shouldn't be that hard. Like, he's a phenomenal football player. He will go for big money as long as he's fit and still doing what he does. So it shouldn't be that difficult for him to get his move if he really wants it.
Yeah. Joe, the word is that the release clause is £62.5 million. Do you think that gets triggered this summer by a big club that comes in?
Well, I think it depends on the Wolves' status in the Premier League. The club is sometimes confounding to me in the moves that I've watched over the years that they don't make and they do make. Given the recent history, if the model is to develop the players and then sell them at a profit, then yes. But if the Fosun maybe had an opportunity to look at Wolves over the past the past year and a half, for example, and decided, well, geez, we do need to somehow maybe not spend a ton of money, but maintain a certain level of skill and talent, then maybe no. But my gut tells me that if Wolves stay up, then he's staying with them.
Man, I hope you're right. He has the potential to be in the Neves discussion as one of the most beloved Wolves in their modern history. And I think he'd have to stay past this summer to be part of that, and obviously keep him up. Well, we are all flying high, 2-0 win, Cunha signing his extension, and Danzo is coming in. Oh, this is going to be great. Man, we can't have it all, right? Yeah, that was one of those Fabrizio, go fuck yourself. Joe, do you play fantasy football?
I do not.
Okay. Alex, I know you do, right?
Yes.
I compared Spurs coming in at the last minute to get a better offer for Danzo and hijack the deal. I said, if that was in a fantasy football league, that ends friendships.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah.
Like, that's one of those where the group chat, there is some swearing and there are some people that are suddenly not best men in others' weddings. What do you think about that, Joe? Especially, I couldn't really think of a way to compare a situation like that to American sports. The best I could think about was the Boston Red Sox looked like they were getting A-Rod from the Rangers, and then the Yankees swooped in. But there was no deal. The best one I heard online was DeAndre Jordan when he had agreed to sign with the Mavericks, and the Clippers players drove to his house and locked him in the house until it was time to sign contracts. And Mark Cuban's driving around Dallas trying to get a hold of him on the phone. And I was like, that's probably the best comparison there of a team hijacking it.
Well, Josh, one thing I will compare it to is the thing. I mean, for all those who follow college football, think of the transfer portal and the whole NIL thing. And I'll give you an example that's close to me, right? So the guy the quarterback from Belleville.
Oh, this is great. Yeah.
Who was the top rated quarterback in the country, signed with LSU, and then Michigan came in with a $10 million NIL deal for the kid and swooped him up.
That's it, Joe. You're right. That is the best comparison.
100%. And in this case, it's an already done deal, right? The kid signs, and then now, nope, he's not. He's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering if he's on Wolves' private plane, if at that point they just land wherever and go get the fuck out.
They gave him a plan, a change in flight plan.
Yeah, I'd be dropping him off in the middle of nowhere and going, you can walk your ass to Tottenham when the Spurs go marching in, right? I was disappointed mostly because it wasn't going to be a permanent deal, Danny. It was going to be a loan, which I kind of like a little better at this stage to see if they fit the mold without having to spend a bunch of money. Overall, do you think that's a big loss, though, Danzo leaving for Tottenham?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's easy to feel like it's a loss because it feels like we've been after him for at least a couple windows. And so it's not it to the extent that Wolves currently have any transfer planning, which I think there's reason to be skeptical of that, it's disappointing to miss out on a target that you think fits with the team, on a long-term basis. But I agree that if there was no guarantee of keeping him, it's one thing if you're just doing the loan to sort of put off payments to later to, fiddle with PSR or whatever. But if there was no guarantee and then seeing how quickly, not even how quickly it switched to Spurs, but there were indications earlier that he had his sights set on other moves, then it really makes you question, at least after the fact, whether it would have worked out anyway, because here's a guy coming into a relegation threatened club and has his mind on a bigger move, and with no obligation to buy on our part, like what does he even care if we go down or stay up? Like he's just there to put himself in the shop window. And as long as he makes himself look good, and of course that would, coincide with us staying up, but it doesn't have to. And it's just like for that moment, the moment that we're in, it just doesn't feel right. And it's funny to do such like a quick U-turn, like I would have felt at the time that like, without any of this movement, like this is great. We got our guy. This is the guy that we've wanted for a while. It's all perfect. But literally I was just looking back at the tweets and it's like 309 was the tweet about him about to undergo a medical in London. And then I think it was an hour later, 407, that Spurs had hijacked it. And it was literally like I was about to go out to have a celebratory pint after that win. And it was as I was walking up there that it was like, hold on, he's not coming. And just for me to do that like very quick U-turn, it's just I don't know. It gives bad vibes just generally. And I think, like I said, in the moment that Wolves are in right now, needing fighters and needing people who care about being here, it just makes you think it's a bullet dodge. Not necessarily because the person's a bad player or something, but like for what we need right now, I'm not sure he's it.
Alex, it's like Danso went to the bar and said, I'm going home with some lady tonight, and it started to get late, and he saw that 6 and said, I guess that'll do. And as he's getting ready to walk out, suddenly he saw an 8 who was so trash she looked like a 6, but there's the potential for the 8, and he said, I'm going to go with her.
She winked at him.
Right? She winked at him. She winked at him, and he said, "Deuces, I'm out."
Yeah, seriously. Well,
it was probably like the girl that he knew in high school who was like a cheerleader and always wanted to hook up with her, but she's like, divorced with 2 kids right now. But you know what? She's still that cheerleader I remember.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is Spurs, but you could argue if there's like one club that's like having more of a disappointment of a season than Wolves, who I think some people had predicted. Well, it's weird because some people thought they were bound for relegation going into the year, and some people thought they would be in the top half. But Spurs certainly have underdelivered to a greater level than anybody else this season in the league until their win on the weekend. We were seriously going to have to talk about if they're going to get dragged into this muck with us, right? So,
yeah.
Good luck to them.
They're still down there. Like, I'm not making any predictions, but I'm just saying, like, they're not out of it yet. And the last thing I'll say about Spurs is that Danzo has had some injuries in the past, and I just immediately wonder how he's going to fare under Ange Ball.
He's not even a guaranteed starter now because they got another center back the next day.
Yeah. Well, in terms, in this situation, if we're the 6 that was about to go home with this guy, and then we did dodge a bullet because it's the questionable character, right? From the guy who at the last second is willing to just kind of jump ship and just go with anything that might seem like a better prospect. So, and that's really, to Danny's point, we're not in a situation where we could bring in more bad characters, right? Like we've had enough turmoil. We've changed captains. We've had people fight opposing members of opposing teams' staff. We've then sold captains multiple years in a row. We were questioning if our best player wanted to be here. Like we don't need a guy who's just here for a good time in a relegation battle to try to make a name for himself in England. We need João Gomez's, right? Like men of their word, guys who aren't going to be out till bar close anyway, waiting to just like swoop in on someone.
And there's nothing wrong with being a 6. Sometimes that means, make up for it in other ways, a little spunky and, fun to be around.
Yeah, well, if you're in this game for 9s and 10s, then Wolves are just not for you, right?
Good Lord, this metaphor is getting strained.
Blame Josh. Yeah.
Paul's gonna be like, I'm never getting sick ever again. So I thought at that point, oh, this is the perfect excuse for Wolves to just be like, well, we tried. I seriously doubted they had a plan B, but they did have a plan B, guys, and that's Nasir Giga. I got it.
Wow,
The D
got it.
is silent, guys. And so I decided it's going to be Giga Unchained for those Tarantino fans from Red Star Belgrade. 5.5-year deal. Now, Joe, he does have a lot of starting experience and Champions League group experience, despite being only 22. Do you think he slides right into the starting 11, or is he somebody that's going to be kind of worked in slowly?
I mean, I think also, Josh, he has some national cap experience too, if I'm not mistaken. When I looked it up, he's got size. I think I looked at it. He's 6'3", which is a decent size for a defender, right? Central defender. So, if I look at behavior in the history of the club and behavior, no, I don't necessarily see him sliding in, but I do see him rotating and subbing for sure. Once there's some acclimation to the club, I do.
Danny, you've probably looked at a lot of YouTube highlights. So what is your breakdown on him?
I have not. I've looked at a little bit. But no, I think that, from what I've seen, the very little that I've seen, I feel like the closest comparison is like Yerson, where he's a bit more rangy and he probably has a bit more pace than your big guys like Agbadou. I saw some really positive remarks from a journalist after the deal went through. So I'll just bring that up. Good with the ball, sets up play from defense, likes contact play. So we know Yerson likes some contact play.
Yeah. Does this mean we're going to get the Giga squeezy bum-o-meter?
Maybe. Good pass quality, good initial control. Can also play right back in case of need. Good turns, good sprints, good decision, speed under pressure, very good long passes. We'll have to see. I pointed out to some folks on Twitter that, he's coming from a team that sits at the top of the league and they don't have to do a ton of defending. So he's going to have had a lot more time on the ball at Belgrade than he is here. So we'll have to see about that. But I think it's going to be sort of in that Yerson mold of recovery runs and that kind of thing. I think in terms of him slotting in, it's going to be really interesting because I think Doc is keeping his place specifically because he is not quite a center back. And so maybe that lends credence. If this guy also can play right back, if he is sort of the same, maybe he does come in. But we also have to remember he's not he's fairly young. He's 22.
22. Yeah.
So there's not a rush. I'm just happy that we have cover there. And if he can challenge Doc and maybe take his spot, then that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, that was my disappointment because I felt like Danso was for sure going in and he was going to slot right in. But it's not like Doc's been horrible. He's been solid. So the other move, which I'm kind of on the fence about here, was Marshall Manetzi, Alex. I felt like once we saw what Bellegarde could do at center mid in a natural position, knowing we have Tommy Doyle, we still have Gomez, still have Andre, Boubacar's coming back. Are you surprised they got another center mid, especially on a non-loan deal?
I'm not surprised they added a center back or a center midfielder. I'm surprised at the one that they did add because it is definitely a different profile than Mario Lamina in Munetzi. He seems like he likes to get forward and come in, contribute offensively, has decent goal involvements. But I don't know truly the midfield that Pereira wants to play long term. So maybe this is also one of those things. He is 28 years old. It's not like he's a kid. If Pereira at some point is going to want to play a midfield 3, to me it makes a lot more sense. But if we're just riding out a midfield 2 for the rest of the year, having seen what Bellegarde could do, knowing that they didn't end up loaning out Tommy Doyle anywhere, and that when healthy, Gomez, Andre, and João Gomez are like, two of the first names on the team sheet, then yeah, like is he going to be a guy who struggles to even make the bench some games? I don't know. Is he going to be a guy who's like the first name called off the bench? Maybe. I'm not really certain. Are we going to at some point play a midfield 3? It's a possibility.
Or the famous 3-6-1.
Yeah, maybe we'll see some of that. I like that. I think he adds where he is good are in areas I think that other Wolves midfielders don't necessarily have that skill set, right? Like, like I think 96. I'm just looking at some of like his like percentile rankings against other midfielders. 96 percentile for non-penalty XGs. He gets a lot of shots off. His passing is pretty suspect.
Great.
Which is what scares me. Like if we're in a relegation battle, right? Like turning the ball over in the midfield is not something that I think is going to bode well for us. Like he's like really, really bad in terms of pass completion percentage compared to other midfielders.
So he's 0-0 to Soe. Awesome.
But that being said, he's another guy. Look, Zimbabwe international, former teammate of Agbadu. Like it's also like I'm all for, like positive vibe moves too, right? Like if it's just going to be a guy, we need depth. We need some like we have to prepare in case of emergency of injury and suspension. We always caveat that with our Brazilians who love to go in with the crunching challenge. You need the depth, but long term, I don't know what this move is because he's 28, right? So it's not a player you're going to like groom and. I think he's just like a bench guy. So be it. But
or a championship starter.
Yeah, championship starter maybe. I don't know, but yeah, Bellegarde gives you a lot to think about. That was a really good performance, man. And Gary O'Neill insisted on playing him on the wing, but I can't help but feel like we've just been wasted a year of Bellegarde's life now, having seen what he could do.
Yeah. Going back to the Danso bit that we were just talking about players wanting to be here, Nasser Giga was playing for a Champions League club, and he turned down a Europa League club in order to come here, and said, "I really wanted to come to Wolves." And similarly, like Alex was just saying with Munetsi, he said that as soon as there was news that he might be coming, Chirewa texted him because they know each other from the Zimbabwe team. And obviously he knew Agbadu. And it's just like, these are guys who like want to be here. And it might be for those, sort of like family reasons, those sort of like teammate reasons, but that's a reason that is separate from them thinking of Wolves as a stepping stone. And so if that translates into them giving a damn, even if it's off the bench, and specifically about Munetsi, I've just very briefly seen him again, but like as we all have. But to me, it's like this is kind of like more of like a Den Donker style, like box to box. You're gonna sigh, but Den Donker was a very useful player for us. Oh. People called him a donkey, but donkeys are extremely useful animals in a lot of settings. And yeah, he scores goals at a pretty decent rate for a midfielder. So someone who can go box to box, and he's also not short. This guy is, I think, about 6'2". It's like, this is something that we don't really have. So even if it's just a different option off the bench, I think it's not the worst idea.
And Donker. Oh, see, now you ruined my night, Danny.
What? I need to get a Den Donker jersey. This has reminded me.
I think my least favorite Wolves players.
I think my favorite thing about the deadline is if that Giga is going to be someone who comes in right away and takes that right center back position from Doc, that I guess Agbadu is going to be playing in the middle. Like, I don't know. I just viewed him as someone like we have to make a signing so that he can play as the right center back. But maybe he is going to play in the middle. And if Giga's any good, like that back three of Totti, Agbadu, and Giga is very athletic, very rangy, very great size. Like, I don't know. The physical profile of the guys Wolves are bringing in is good. It's always a risk coming to England. It's a much more physical league. It's a lot faster, whatever. But it's not like a Sarabia where you look at like the profile of the player. And I'm not knocking him. I praise it.
I never say anything
where you
bad
wonder
about Sarabia, so.
Yeah, if you wonder if he can cut it physically in this league. I mean, for a 22-year-old who's 6'4", who showed pretty well in Champions League matches, I mean, that's the kind of profile you want, right? And who wants to be at Wolves, like Danny said. That's the biggest part of it too, is that we finally found a guy who looks at Wolves in a relegation battle and says, I'd still rather be in the Premier League than be on a Europa League team of lesser size in a lesser league on a week-to-week basis. So I'm encouraged.
Joe, there was no striker this window. Were you disappointed? Although, if you notice the video celebrating in the locker room afterwards, Danny knows what I'm going to say. There was a lot of big sassy in the background. You can't miss him. What do you think, Joe?
No, I mean, I'm not disappointed in the lack of signing a striker. I mean, it's there. What I found is the strikers out there come to Wolverhampton, hit or miss, and I'm thinking that we ride with what we have. I mean, I don't. Obviously, if they would have signed somebody, it wouldn't have hurt, right? At least for depth and rotation. But at this point, you've got Larson now. Now, Josh, you said 2 to 3 months. I heard 2 to 3 weeks.
I saw that, but then I didn't get confirmation on it, so it could have just been somebody throwing shit out there.
Yeah, I thought I saw a social media post that said 2 or 3 weeks.
I hope that's right.
Yeah,
I saw months.
Okay, well, hope not. But I like the combination and chemistry of Cunha and Strand Larson.
So the big outgoing was Mario Lemina. He left for the Galatasaray. I don't know, Danny, how you say it?
Galatasaray. You were close enough.
I was close enough. So I definitely encourage people to go to Wolves Fancast's Twitter page, and I retweeted this as well. It was written by Richard Russell over there. Fantastic post talking about how really we shouldn't be quick to just be giving a big fuck you to Lemina. It's very clear he's gone through a lot in the last year. Mental health is a serious issue that is out there. And this helped kind of point out, like, he's been struggling. He lost his dad. His brother did go back to France. And I think Mario had a ton of pressure. I felt like this summer he was the perfect captain because it looked like he wanted it. Like he wanted that responsibility. And I think as the pressure hit, it just got a little too much. Joe, how do you think we should view the very small Mario Lemina era at Wolves?
When Lemina was named captain, I was a fan of it. I mean, mostly because I thought at the time that Mario Lemina led on the pitch by example. By example. Yep. We saw a lot of firsthand play when they were in the U.S. and watching, and Lemina was always playing hard, was always physical and making good decisions. But I think there was a combination of things, Josh, and I think you're right. I mean, the personal emotional issues, but I think the mix of what happened with Gary O'Neill and the team struggles through that period and not winning, and a lot of the burden of that falling on Lemina's shoulders could have been something that just was the tipping point. And it obviously it all materialized when all the physical altercations started, and you can't have that in your captain. And then he loses the captaincy. Mm-hmm. I thought that when he lost the captaincy, that was probably the end. I mean, that's a tough one. It's a tough one to recover from. And but no, I was a fan of Lemina. I think he's a talented player, works hard, does set a good example when he is playing and working hard. But And also you look at the ingredients of what was happening with Wolves too, and their just overall play, the level, the lower quality level of play. And Lamina as a leader is probably going to take a big piece of that too. I'm happy. I'm happy that he's moving on and hopefully has another opportunity. I'm sad because it didn't work out. I mean, he's a talented player.
I'm going to read these last few lines that Richard Russell did post because I think they're very good. If you're one of the fortunate people who hasn't had some kind of struggle or low point in your life, consider yourself very fortunate. Most of us who are able to navigate it without public scrutiny. If Mario does indeed move on, I would say thank you for your contribution to Wolves and good luck. If he stays, I sincerely hope he's able to reintegrate into the team and continue to make the positive contributions we became used to seeing. We are all human and life is too short. Just perfect, Danny, I felt like.
Yeah, I think we may never know the true answer to what happened. And so that's why it's better, not to make unnecessary comments about it. I think, I wish that he'd handled it better, but also so much of it happened behind the scenes that it's really hard to make any really any proclamation about what happened. And I think the only thing I can say unequivocally is that I wish that the club had been able to be quicker about bringing in, if they felt that another midfielder replacement was necessary, making that happen much quicker in the window. Not necessarily. I know people have been worried about the games that we play in January, but more just for the sake of closure. The cloud hanging over it for January has just been unpleasant with Lamina, not being able to be selected. And then of course we have João Gomez, suspended, and it's the perfect time for him to come in. It's just, it all turned out okay with Bellegarde having an amazing game, but it was a very unnecessary distraction for both him, I'm sure, and especially for Wolves.
And Alex, I'm probably in the minority, but I'm going to look at Mario Lamina's time at Wolves a lot more favorably than I do Matheus Nunes and Daniel Podence. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, Podence did score some important goals and also punched a racist, so that's always a positive, right? But generally, I do agree with you. I feel bad more than I feel like angry at Mario Lamina. I feel just disappointed in the way, but not like disappointed in him necessarily, but disappointed in what happened in that caused his time at Wolves to end. But also, thankful, like, don't forget, he was part of that one window, a different January window where we really needed rescuing. So whatever you want to say about the way things went under Gary O'Neill and then this season and the way it unraveled, he was still a major part in us even getting another Premier League campaign to look forward to and enjoy and podcast about. So I'm thankful for that. He was, some excellent memories from Lamina, including it was his goal that was the Spurs winner, right? That was was awesome. Like there's definitely a lot of joy when you think back on Lamina moments in a very brief time.
He was probably the player of the year last year for Wolves.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
He
was the supporters player of the year, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So there was one other deal that we got excited about. Didn't happen. There was talk of a Connor Cody, Craig Dawson swap. Since we're running late on time, we won't get much into that. But I think this is something that's probably going to be revisited this summer, Danny.
We'll see. I love
just like whatever.
I love the fanciful choices of which players are coming back to coach us. It used to be João Moutinho, even though he's still playing, is somehow going to come back every window and be an assistant coach to Gary O'Neill or whatever. And now it's Connor Cody. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't resist. That was such a fun moment this morning when that news broke. I mean, that's like, you just like distill down the transfer silly season thing into this one moment where you read this headline from journalists that I very much respect.
Yeah, like, not Fabrizio.
I was like, this has got to be a troll Right? Like, what are we doing here? But yeah, just disappointing that it didn't come off just because of the banter. I think it would have been fun, and I think you could make an argument that in terms of the dressing room, it could have been a positive, but really more of a rearranging the deck chair scenario for that one for me.
I will say the one thing I'm glad to see is that Cody and Wolves have kind of seemed to at least have worked out a lot of the issues when he left, the bad feelings, because I would very much like to see him as an ambassador. I think if he came on a U.S. tour out here as an ambassador, Joe, American fans would be thrilled, because for a lot of us, we started watching like Cody Jimenez, Adama. That's our Wolves era team.
No, I agree, Josh. I mean, there some of those players, as you know, and I've been following the club for 25 years or so. But for a lot of the folks who have been following Wolves since their promotion, Cody is a very recognizable person and player, and they would be able to relate. And you said it earlier, like a Dama or a Raul as an ambassador. I agree. And I'm a fan of Cody too. And Danny, just to echo what you said, I mean, I think Cody adds something to the locker room, the dressing room immediately. I mean, there's leadership there. And I'm not saying that Dawson doesn't have that, but it's a different style of leadership and presence.
I can just see it now. You know, in 10 years or whatever, Wolves have finally qualified for the Champions League. And then that summer tour afterwards, and they do a game in Houston, and they bring Raul and Connor Cody to talk to the fan.
Who would I get to wear the cowboy hat? And why would it be Connor Cody?
Are we there's going to be a separate podcast about the cowboy hat and whether
cowboy hat
was on it.
First of the cowboy hat. Yeah. I don't know. Bad juju. Who knows? So speaking, well, let's go. There's a lot to talk about. Short amount of time. It's a transfer deadline show. It'll we'll speed it up. Wolves women, Danny, they are playing in the FA Cup this weekend on Saturday at 12:15 Eastern, 11:15 Central Time. So kind of a preview. How are they getting on this season? Are they doing well?
They are doing very well. So just to do kind of a quick Wolves women update through this little segment that we've got, Wolves women started to do a shift to a hybrid model. So there are now some players who are salaried, which is a good step in the right direction. But there are other teams in their division which are being backed even more so, and by a lot. But Wolves are currently second in the league and only on goal difference. Forest is in first. And it's going to be a really tight season all the way down to the end. And overall, if they continue this way, I think it can't be seen as anything but a success, and hopefully further proof that, further investment is needed because they're really overperforming at this point in terms of their level of investment. And it's actually been a really exciting season.
So they're playing Manchester United. What type of matchup is that? And if you had to compare it on the men's side, like.
Yeah, it's not quite like, I know last round in the men's, we saw like Tamworth. It's not quite that level of disparity, but Man United are in the WSL, which is the top league for the women's pyramid, or the top division of the women's pyramid. Wolves women are in the third tier. It's going to be quite massive. Manchester United are currently in second. They are a very strong team. They've got, England internationals on their team. But it should be really exciting. And, the reason I wanted to bring it up really is that this is a rare chance that we get to watch them, because the Women's FA Cup streams most of their games on YouTube. And it got selected to be moved forward a day to Saturday, so it doesn't clash with the men's game. We'll obviously post that on our socials, but it's the Adobe Women's FA Cup, so the Adobe WFA Cup on YouTube. They chose to have it at their usual home stadium, which is AFC Telford's stadium rather than Molineux, so that you get a good atmosphere. It's like a much smaller stadium. They're on track to completely smash their previous attendance records, which was about 3,800 at Molineux. And I think I've seen some estimates that they could see 4,500 to 5,000 at Telford Stadium.
That's awesome. And how can people watch the game here in the States?
Yeah, I just mentioned you could see it on YouTube. Another fun thing, like I always listen on the Wolves radio. Definitely check that out. Matthew Ponter is a great commentary voice for that. You can sync up the audio pretty easily for your more Wolves slant. One thing I will mention for Man United, I mean, you'd expect to see some rotation. And in fact, they rotated quite a bit in their last round, which actually against West Brom, which they won 7-0. So I think we are a much stronger team than West Brom in both the men's and the women's. But something interesting is that in that game, Fallon Joyce was in goal, and she is a sort of fringe goalkeeper for U.S. women's team. She's 28, so she's entering sort of prime goalkeeping years. And so it's very possible we could see, someone who's moving into the forefront of the U.S. women's team picture in goal playing against them. And another little interesting storyline there is that Beth Merrick for Wolves women has scored in her last 7 consecutive FA Cup games going back to last season. So if she can at least score a goal, I'll be celebrating that whether the result goes for us or not. This would be an absolute giant killing if we did it, but they made the right decision of playing it at Telford because they're not going to be used to the quality of that pitch. It's a decent place and they do a very good job on that pitch, but it is not like the pitches that they play on.
So shot of Malort, right?
Yep, that's right.
There we go. Well, that's on Saturday. On Sunday, Wolves are back at it. Is it at Sunday or Saturday?
Sunday.
Alex? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, Sunday. It's an early one, guys. 7:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Central. U.S. Post Coast people, I'm so sorry. It's at 4:30 Pacific time. It's against the Blackburn Rovers. Joe, what are you thinking? Do you know much about Blackburn?
Not really. Other than having they had played in the past when I used to follow them in the lower league. John, I mean, from a prediction standpoint, I mean, I believe right now they sit up near the top 5 in the table in the league championship. We sit in the bottom 5, so it might be a little closer, but I still think I see Wolves hopefully carrying the momentum from this last weekend. And I think it'll be a better match in terms of the squad selection too, because the teams that they may see Blackburn as a bit more competitive, and because of that, we might see, and there's a week rest there too, so we might see the top squad.
Yeah, I think that week rest definitely plays a key. Danny, any surprises that we'll see in the lineups? I imagine there'll be a couple, maybe a Pedro Lima appearance.
Yeah, I think the baseline is going to be probably keeping the lineup as it is because, like you said, it's it fits right into our schedule. It's just the next weekend and the following weekend is Liverpool, so it's not like we're doubling up on games in the week. So I think the baseline, especially after a really good performance against Villa, is probably got to be people keep their places. But that being said, I think that there will be a few changes. I think you hit it at one there. I think it's possible that you could see I think it's possible, in fact, you could see, Semedo maybe coming out for Rodrigo Gomez or something. I also think that with João Gomez now having served his suspension, it might be a preference that he not sit out 2 weeks. 2 weeks between games. Mm-hmm. And so to have him come back in and get minutes might be a good choice. And he could maybe replace Andre if he needs a rest. I mean, Andre never seems like he needs a rest, so probably not. But it's going to be those kinds of changes where it's going to be, I think we're still going to look at it as like very much kind of a starting 11 team, but with some changes here and there as needed, or maybe if some of these new players need some betting in or something. I think that's slightly less likely, just because of the positions that they play. But who knows? I mean, Doc's not young anymore, and he might need a rest. So
it's true. Let's look at the prediction table. Danny, no points this last week. Alex,
yeah, I
no
know.
points.
I forgot to put in my thing. I was going to say 2-1, but I fully accept that I was just a lazy bastard.
Yeah. Paul got none. Oh, look at this. Look who's mounting a comeback. I got a point again. That's 5 in my last 3 games. So, Danny, it didn't really matter. You're still in first with 23. Alex, 16. Paul Bear, watch out. I'm coming for him. He's at 11. I'm at 10. Let's go. Pulling the relegation battle. Joe, we need you to step up for the guest spots. The guest spot still has 5. So I will let you start. What is your prediction for this match?
I think it's not going to be as close as it looks, but I think it's 2-1 Wolves.
2-1 Wolves. Okay. Danny?
Yeah, I agree. I think both teams are probably going to play pretty much starting 11 quality players. I still think we have enough, and I think we're riding high. I'm going to go 2-0. I think if Tody starts, we get another clean sheet, and he goes 4 for 4.
Wow. Alex?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm in this one for a clean sheet. So I agree with Danny. I guess for the sake of being different, so that if there is a clean sheet, maybe one of us could, or I could try to gain some ground in this table. I'll say 1-0, a very professional 1-0 victory for Wolves.
Oh, no. God, I guess I'm gonna be the Debbie Downer, huh? I don't know. I just got a bad feeling about this one. I'm going to say it's going to be a 1-1 draw with then Blackburn winning 3-2 on penalty kicks.
Don't do this to me. Don't.
Yeah.
I was forced
Johnson,
to pick
I'm sure, is going to start in goal, right?
Yeah, probably.
You'd think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was forced to pick a loss in the last round because that's what I had predicted in our half season predictions or whatever, that's when we were going to go out, even though I thought we were going to win. Don't do this to me.
I also have my reasons on why I maybe want their cup run to be a little shorter. So that is this weekend, but coming up soon, Joe, is what everybody out here is talking about, and that is the USA We Wolves Day. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yes, sir. Hey, guys, first of all, a shout out to David Kopke in New York, Alan Bull in Baltimore, and Chris down in Florida, who have been kind of helping help put all this together, right? Meeting and just chasing things down. And then the second thing I want to say is my apologies to everybody, the population, for being vague about the plans, right? How it's coming. And I want you to know that we're working with the club, and part of the reason the club has been engaged. I mean, evidently, when there's a transfer window and you're changing managers, it has the organization in kind of a stir, right? So, but they have been communicating with us. So what it looks like is that the activities are going to start on Friday the 7th, probably around 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to have a dinner with all the group, the USA group, probably a curry, followed by a pub crawl of some kind. And then over the weekend, apart from the match, we're going to do a museum tour. I'm hoping most likely on Saturday, and then the Molyneux tour on Sunday. And the match is on Saturday night. And then we'll probably do another group dinner in pub. I'm assuming you got another pub crawl on Sunday. And during that time, we're trying to arrange the player meet or the former player meet and greets and all of those other activities. But similar to the types of things we did when we were in Florida and in Maryland, hopefully we'll have the opportunity to interact with the staff and former players, and it should be a great weekend. I am working with, both Todd and Alan from the club, trying to settle on exactly when these activities are going to take place. But if you were planning travel, you can be safe to say that things are going to start Friday midday and end Sunday evening, and with the match being kind of sandwiched in the middle of all that.
And it's a night game, it was announced.
Yes, Saturday
you
night.
got to be excited about that.
Saturday night football. Yeah.
Who gets more drunk, Chris Fisher or Stu?
Well, Chris has his family there with him, so
Chris
I'm
got
gonna.
a baby to look after, right?
He won't.
You guys, and I do. I sincerely express my appreciation for the people that are around and willing to help on this, because it's a lot of work, right? And the communications and coordinating all this, and in the club's list of priorities, again, transfer window, manager change, we're like here right now. But part of the what the club wanted to wait for too is to have this FA Cup break and get the Villa match behind them. So and hopefully we'll have some surprises in there too, in terms of the people we get to meet. And again, nothing solid yet, but the club always comes through. I mean, they with Bully and Jody in Chicago, and so the club comes through. So I'm confident that it'll be a great time. And the other key thing is we have 36 people who have registered and are coming over for the trip.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
incredible.
Yeah, you might have one more, because I met a fellow who lives near Baltimore just this weekend when we watched the Villa game. His wife is a flight attendant, so he flies for free, and he's seriously considering it. So
yeah, so to everybody listening, and help spread this word, it's very important. Josh, you created the survey. It's very important that you do the survey and get your name, or email me directly, and I'll share that with you as we close out here. But it's very important that we get you registered, because the tickets for the match are probably not going to be sold through the box office. They're going to be sold through the club, and one of us is going to buy them and then distribute them to all the attendees. But the nice thing about that is no one's going to have to buy an international membership. And so it's important that you communicate with me either on Facebook through the Wolves USA group or my Michigan Wolves group. I'm on Twitter, which is what you see my handle there, @MishWolvesUSA. And then my email is wolvesmichiganusa@gmail.com. But reach out to me or go out and fill out the survey that we've been publishing so that we know. The other thing too that I'll tell you is, when we were in Florida, I was using it, and the people who were planning those activities were using those email lists to directly communicate to people. And there are times when the club wants to talk with a specific group of people rather than the whole population. So if you're coming, be sure to let us know.
Yeah, and we'll definitely share out that stuff on the social media. We'll make that abundantly clear. You guys are doing such a great job on Facebook. I was letting this guy know that I was just talking about, it's funny how, we get siloed in these social media bubbles, and it's just like, he didn't even know that was out there. And I said, look, join the Wolves USA Facebook group. Everything's there. Joe's there. Chris Wood is there. Anybody who can answer a question. David Kopi's there. Yeah. If there's someone who can answer a question, they're there. One little footnote to this, and I didn't want to let this opportunity pass by, but that same game is the next Samosa Saturday for Manny Kang, who is always visible through Wolves stuff. I mean, I don't need to go into the whole Jeff Shee weirdo emails, but he's a guy who does a lot of great work does
a lot of great work for dementia. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Raising money for Dementia UK. And so he will be outside of the match beforehand, selling samosas for donations. And so, I'm excited that got to coincide with the USA Day. It's a really special moment.
And Danny, I'll add to that too, is in addition to the USA group coming over, the Irish Wolves are also, that's their day as well. So we're going to be and we're going to try to coordinate some activity between the U.S. and the Irish Wolves somewhere during.
God help you if the pub crawl is the thing that.
Jesus, yeah.
Right?
Ooh, Americans trying to keep. Nope, not gonna have it. Joe, you have been awesome with this. I know you gave a lot of credit there to David and Chris Fisher, who are also great. But man, you have been doing a fantastic job with this and a lot of work that a lot of people don't see. So thank you. Even though I won't be able to make it, just thank you for helping set up all of this.
Oh yeah, I mean, I want to see the popularity of the club grow, and if people get a chance once you make that Molyneux trip, especially, it absolutely will hook you.
Mm-hmm.
No Stupid Questions is brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. Whether you're toasting some Vino de Vitor or winding down after a day of work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of wine country with each sip. Now at esfuerzowines.com, you can use the promo code VITOR, that's VITOR, at checkout to receive a 30% discount off your order. And don't forget to try the special edition 1-pack wines to show your passion and support for Wolves with each glass. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their product responsibly and in moderation.
All right, no stupid questions, our favorite part of the show, where you, the listener, get to send us your questions, anything related to Wolverhampton Wanderers at all. You could do so via the show's email address, hello@wholelotofwolves.com. You could do so on X, where we prompt you each week ahead of the recording. The handle is WLW Pod. For those of you who are watching live on the show's YouTube stream, or on Facebook, you can put your questions directly in the chat, and we can just answer them on the spot. So, Vino for Vitor, by the way, we can do. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm drinking tea, but I'm imagining that this were some Esfuerzo wine and toasting Vitor to another clean sheet. I know Danny is. He's got a Winter Wanderer.
Ooh.
Very, very on
Very
brand
appropriate,
for this,
right?
appropriate
Nice.
for this one. So cheers to you, Vitor. Cheers to our friends at Esfuerzo Wines. Use the promo code Vitor, as you heard there, and get a 30% discount at checkout off of your wines. All right, so let's get to these questions. An absolute banger to start off. Todd DeWitt, who's at the club longer, Vitor or Matheus Cunha?
I'm gonna say Cunha.
This is
I
a
don't know,
great question.
It's a fantastic question.
don't know.
Really?
So,
I will say that this feels difficult because if you'd asked me just a few weeks ago, if you asked me like 2 weeks ago, it'd be one thing. If you asked me 3 or 4 weeks ago, it'd be a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was a moment there where I thought that at the early signs of like Cunha dropping off a little bit, it felt like, you know, Vitor Pereira has a history of falling out with players. We just went from a coach who the players really loved, even if he wasn't getting results, to an acerbic coach. And this is all going to end in tears, even if we stay up. And then it felt more like it was Cunha's agent that was leading it. And now I don't really know. And so it's like, I think like I said, there's a great chance that someone comes in and buys Cunha in the summer. There's also a great chance that doesn't happen. And we haven't quite seen the peak of Vitor Pereira yet. So I don't really know. I think it'll be Vitor Pereira, but I would not put money on it. I'll say that.
You think Spurs will come in and try to steal him?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, my honest opinion on Cunha leaving is that like I don't know that there are like tons of those big teams that he fits into, but Spurs is a good shout because they are willing to throw away money at something stupid potentially.
No, screw them. Spurs call, I hang up the phone.
I mean, Chelsea is the obvious answer because again, they are the ones who are going to throw away money at something that they don't need. Whereas like that's why the Arsenal thing always seemed a bit odd because I just don't know that he fits in with them. I mean, he's a great player, but I don't know that he fits what they do. But whatever, that's beside the point.
Yeah. I think Vitor is just one of those guys who kind of wears on his players, and I don't feel like those managers, unless you're Pep, stick around at one spot for very long. So I could see Cunha having a little Neves thing where he doesn't go in the summer, and then
Yeah, I'm going Vitor. I just think the way Cunha was talking when he was doing the media hit after signing the contract, it was almost like he was talking about Wolves in the past tense. Yeah. I understand, and I agree to Danny's point. Like, he is under contract now; anything could happen. Neto was here longer than we probably thought he would be. Mm-hmm. Some of that was through injury. Some of that was, I guess, waiting for a team like Chelsea who will throw away money on players that they don't need. But it does feel like for Cunha to leave this summer, he kind of has to continue this ascension where he's going to have all the clubs be into him, which means that Wolves are going to do well, which means that Vitor is going to stay in the job heading into next season because they're going to survive, and we're going to go in with a fresh start. And oh my God, this narrative. I feel like every summer we're talking about this. Now we have a full training camp with our new manager. Now we'll really see what he can do. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's how I feel as this is coming out of my mouth. But I do think it will be Vitor. I also think that release clause is not that. I mean, it's fair for, like, I'll take it, right, for Cunha. But I think a lot of teams can come in and go above ask on the release clause if he really does have a good second half of the year, to which I think Wolves will take it. And it doesn't have to be an Arsenal or Spurs, but Forest were in for him. Like, they might be playing Champions League football. Like, I could see a scenario where that's pretty appealing. Sure. And that is a team that he would fit well in because they just sit back. They have about 30% of the ball, and then they just absolutely blitz you on the counter. And Cunha's really good at that. We get a little bit of a taste of that here at Wolves. Let's go to Ryan Gray's question, who says, our buddy Ryan Gray says, looks to be a good end to the window. We just saw Cody might be coming back. Obviously, that didn't happen, but would have been huge for leadership. Is this now going to be the norm? Little to no investment in a summer break, break the bank in January, and then no money to spend in the summer again. So talk about cycles. Is this going to be our thing? The January spend to stay up, and then we say, well, we just spent all this money.
Yeah, and especially because we have to consider these guys with loans like Strand Larson will be made permanent over the summer. So they'll be like, oh, look, we spent all this money on Strand Larson. It's a horrible way to run a club because you're being so reactionary instead of proactive. It's not the way to be successful. You end up paying more on this window. I mean, some of these guys probably could have been had for cheaper if we were able to wait till the summer. I'd say as long as Jeff Shee's there, though, yeah, this is the way things are going to be done, and it's not smart. And honestly, for a big business like Fosun, it just blows my mind how reactive they are, and they're not proactive.
You know, Josh, I look at things sometimes from a business perspective too, and mm-hmm. what I see kind of unfolding over the last few seasons in terms of strategy is it looks like Wolves are comfortable bringing in young talent that they know or at least try to develop with the intention of sitting somewhere in the middle to the middle quartile of the table. And then when that doesn't work out, whether you have, managerial problems, then there's a little bit of panic and reaction. Mm-hmm. And I think their intentions are to develop with the hope, because they did that with Nuno, right? To develop this talent that can overachieve, and it doesn't, and maybe even underachieve or underdeliver, then you're in a little bit of a problem. And then you're in January and you're in a panic transfer mode. I think that's what I've seen over the past few seasons.
Yeah, no, it's spot on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to root for a club that wins trophies, Wolves may not be for you.
Yeah. I've sort of said some of this stuff before, but it's just, I think that some people have called it cheaping out that Wolves have gotten sold for big money and then bought for a lot less money. But I think another way to look at it is that we've just, ever since the sort of pandemic-ish, whenever things sort of started to change, we've really been looking at trying to bring in these players who can really kind of break onto the scene, and we're paying under 20 million and then we're going to sell them for over 30. But there's like a huge difference between the past transfer strategy and the current one. And it's obvious for anybody to see. Everybody talks about, Gomez or Forbes or whoever being the next Neto. But the reality is that Neto came in when Jota was flying, and there was no hint that Neto was going to be a great player in the future. He was clearly talented, but he didn't have to do anything immediately. And then it turns out that he's a great player and he goes for lots of money. But we're bringing in someone like Rodrigo Gomez, and he's been great. I mean, it's really fun to watch him, but also we're asking him to be, the next Pedro Neto or the next whoever right out of the bat, when like Neto didn't have to do that. And like I think that's the problem that people are seeing, and what Ryan's sort of getting at there, which is like this cycle kind of like can't go on. You can't keep doing that in the summer where it's like, oh, we're going to buy these players who are like going to one day be really great. And then it's like, oh, they're not great enough to like, if the manager isn't, if the manager isn't quite up to it or whatever, or we have a terrible schedule, both of which were like true this year, they're not going to deliver. And then you end up having to panic buy in January, which like, I'm excited about our new signings, but like, I wish we weren't in this position, So I hope that this institutes a rethink, but I have, I'll believe it when I see it. It's kind of like the transfer window, you believe it when they're holding up the shirt. I'll believe it when I see the proof of it in the summer.
Well, by the way, ESPN had a great article this last week, and it was like every team's worst transfer decision over the last 15 years. Guess who ours was?
It's got to be Fabio, right?
It was Fabio, and it was like top 10. I think it was like 8th or something, and it was like, well, we don't know what Wolves were doing there. They don't know what they were doing.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I like Fabio more than maybe the average person, but it's still really bad.
There's no success. No chance of success.
I would like to think they learned their lesson, being where we are at this point in the season. But the scariest part of all of this, Matheus Cunha is better than any player we've had to replace in a while. And there's a very real chance, like we've been talking about all show, that we're trying to do that in July and August. And I have zero trust that they can do that, even though he did them a solid by making sure financially they'll be equipped to do it.
Yep.
And that's really, really, really scary. So
see, what would be smart right now is if Hobbs is already making calls and doing scouting and finding Cunha's replacement for that 62.5 million pounds. That's what should be happening starting tomorrow. You should already be going into the summer going, here are the 5 guys. We're going to start from this list that we can spend with Matheus's money.
Well, this what I think is this is as far into the season that we've been. Last year we were in a poor position and ended up working our way back over a short period of time. But I think the prospect of losing out on the Premier League revenue is starting to seep a little bit further and further into Fosun's and Jeff Shee's conscious right now. And, we might lose a little bit on this player and this player, but to lose that Premier League revenue, that is a bigger hit. And I was talking with some folks over the weekend who were kind of pushing the idea that it maybe if that happens that they decide to sell the club, but that maybe that was their wishful thinking. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Let's finish with this from Chris Fisher from Florida Wolves down in Fort Lauderdale. Big part of the planning, along with Joe, of the USA Day, and of course David Copey here in New York. With the signing of Nasser Giga, could Baltimore Wolves find Burkina Faso on a map?
Well, I mean, you're asking me what I had done previously. I will, you'll have to just believe me. I would say that if you were to ask me where Burkina Faso is, I would have said, somewhere in equatorial Africa, and I would have been right. Now, you could believe or not believe whether I have that knowledge in my brain, but yes, Burkina Faso is in sort of Western Africa, around the Cape there, in the equatorial part of Africa. So there you go, Chris Fisher.
I'll say this,
jerk.
I'll say this in defense of you, Danny. I feel like you would come a lot closer to picking it out on a map than some of the people from Wolves would have been able to pick Minnesota on a map.
Or Baltimore or Jacksonville in relation to Fort Lauderdale. I mean,
yeah.
And speaking of Baltimore, Danny, the other person I called out earlier that I wanted to make sure it was Alan from your group in Baltimore, Alan Bull, who's been really helpful on all this planning too.
Yeah,
he's stepped up and been really encouraged to come in and help. So just a shout out to him.
Absolutely.
That'll do it for No Stupid Questions. Thanks to everybody who wrote your questions in. Thanks to our friends at Esfuerzo Wines, and thanks to all of you who were watching and listening, bearing with us. A long episode. It's jam-packed. There's a lot going on. We've got 30 plus, almost 40 fans going over for the Everton match. We had to hit on that with Joe. New transfers coming in. Cunha, I mean, what a week for Wolves. What a roller coaster, man. This has been quite a journey. It was really fun. Danso, I mean, oh God.
It had everything.
It had everything. And now we look forward to a FA Cup match at 7:30 in the freaking morning. Yeah.
Hey, be glad you're not on the West Coast, man.
Yeah.
But a women's FA Cup game at noon. It's such an easy time.
Yeah, exactly. That one's way more palatable.
Yeah, we went from Tiny Danso to getting gigabit with it.
Yeah.
We have to workshop some of these.
Yeah, just spitballing here. It's like throwing crap against the wall, see what sticks. Joe Dylewski, one of our favorites. Thanks for coming on tonight, Joe.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how can people get a hold of you regarding
like
this?
I mentioned earlier, my Twitter feed is @MishWolvesUSA. The Facebook group, the USA Wolves Facebook group, the Michigan Wolves Facebook group, also on Instagram @MishWolvesUSA, as well as my email. And again, communicate with me directly at wolvesmichiganusa@gmail.com.
Love it. Well, as you may have noticed already, Paul was not here, which, by the way, was the reason we didn't work in a lot of the many good wrestling Royal Rumble related questions, because our wrestling expert was not here. But it also means that I get tasked with trying to come up with something to say, something clever to say to wrap up the show. So I'll just say, as you're as you're heading to your 7:30 a.m. watch party in Baltimore or Michigan. Are those really happening? No, right? That's way too damn early. But whoever it is that you encounter on the street as you're wearing your Wolves gear, they give you a look like Wolves. Tell them, I love it here. I love it here.
Ah, there we go.
And up the mighty Wolves.